continue on your reading of Nietzsche, melancholia, ressentiment, and nostalgia are important themes for your understanding of politics and subjectivity.
Yeah.
So, when the will to nothingness that Nietzsche is thinking, so when the will to nothingness becomes the will to technology, does the subject's relationship to itself change? Do melancholia, ressentiment, and nostalgia come to play a bigger role? Or, in the absence of a melancholic digital subject, do psychic forces manifest themselves in a different mode in the expansion of technological consciousness?
Wow, that's a really tough question, and very good. Well, it's like this, I think. If you think of the digital generally, and I would typically think of it generally to say that we live within a technologically mediated culture, and say, well, what is the dominant psychological compartment of the culture? And I can't help but agree with Wendy Brown, which says the dominant psychopsychology, psychopathology that drives the culture is what she calls states of injury. That increasingly large numbers of human beings find themselves on the losing end of things and seek for convenient scapegoats. Heidegger had a term for this. He said part of the language of being, which is rising into appearance today, is the malice of rage, profound malice of rage. Wendy Brown, I don't know if she's thought about that, but she has her own sense, states of injury. And she's states of injury is that you do what Nietzsche says. You pick your chosen scapegoat, you say you're injured, someone's done me wrong and I'm going to do them good. And it's not simply that you seek to complete the process of revenge taking or vengeance taking. It's that the real process of the malice of rage, the real source of melancholia and ressentiment, has this kind of obsessive quality about it. It's about endlessly picking over the scab of the wound itself, irritating the wound, irritating the grievance, so that it can never be satisfied because, in fact, it's just what Judith Butler says. It's the pre-ontological constitution of political subjectivity, that the process of thinking through how you are objected and experiencing fury of that becomes the center of politics, the centerpiece of contemporary politics itself. I mean, conservative majorities are rising in every culture in the West, it seems, and they all seem to be based on Wendy Brown's states of injury and Heidegger's notion of the malice of rage itself and Nietzsche's notion of ressentiment. These are real guidelines to understanding contemporary politics. Now, how does that translate into the specifics of the melancholic digital subject? It sort of translates directly into languages of the fury that's experienced and the melancholy that's experienced at the failure of technology to be experienced as a singularity moment. And I think that's the moment of technological culture that we've arrived, that we are living in technological utopia. And it's not that it's necessarily dystopian. It has real elements of boredom creep about it. It's a culture of interpolation without significant meaning. Technology has delivered its feast, and the feast is relatively prosaic.
So does the failure of the technological singularity to come to pass, is that what is motivating the transhumanist movement? Do you think that there's a psychopathology then, like you just said, of boredom and maybe a sort of desperation with which they adhere all the more strongly to this notion that the singularity will come, just wait until 2050? Is that what drives people like Ray Kurzweil?
Yeah, although I like Ray Kurzweil. I read it, I didn't realize he's such an creative inventor, actually. So while I disagree with his texts, I began to completely reappraise my perspective when I realized he had invented so many interesting things in sound installations, scanner machines, and barcodes. I thought, well, this is someone, I think I might have been completely wrong about this person. So I'm going back. That's just an aside to say, his inventions require a rethinking of his text itself. Yeah, but he, as he says, he himself does not want to die. He's already signed his head over for cryogenic freezing. And he says he's not necessarily, doesn't place great hopes in his head's ever going to thaw and really begin to talk. He says, but I really would prefer not to die if there's any technical way to prevent that itself. So, leaving him aside, the transhumanist movement is led by this real extropian urge to crawl out of the flesh of the body itself. it strikes me that it can only be understood in the languages of very traditional Christianity, that the Christians used to call this crawling out of the, Augustine would say, get off the, the flesh is an egg which you ride, and the human flesh is an egg which you ride on the road to Jerusalem. The Christians themselves would translate that into the notion of grace, that the body breaks down into the body of flesh and bone and blood, but also its possible epiphany after death to moments of grace itself. That doesn't strike me as very dissimilar from extropian transhumanist urges itself, which I think are just finally completed Christianity in some sense. And the curiosity of the age in which we live, it's supposed to have this age of projecting towards the future, but it strikes me that the questions of future and past and present are totally intermediated today. As far as I can see, the most ancient and atavistics of religious controversies are part and parcel of our contemporary politics and contemporary economy. And the question of technology itself has its origins in much deeper mythologies of the human adventure.